Susanna Hoffs with us this morning on City 102.5. Under the Covers Volume 3 getting ready to come out. Sid and Susie, Under the Covers Volume 3, your work with Matthew Sweet. Tell us about this Covers record. This one's a little different in the series because you guys, now you're taking on the 80s.
I know. We've made it all the way up to the 80s. When we started, we thought we were going to do one record of 60s covers. Who knew? It's been a really unusually interesting ride for me personally, having been in a band in the 80s, to revisit that era, which was such a kind of an incredible whirlwind of life experience, the 80s for me. It was like a 10-year rock and roll trip, really. So going back and having been a person in the 80s who was obsessed with the 60s and kind of trying to carry the 60s into the 80s, and in a weird way having a tiny bit of resistance to kind of the synthy, happy, light, like seemingly light kind of vibe of the 80s. I have completely fallen in love with the 80s.
No, I had read that about you, Susanna. That even though you guys were topping the charts of the Bangles in the 80s, and you guys had a number of huge hits, then that as a whole, you weren't a big fan of the music of the decade.
Well, I shouldn't say. It's hard to talk black and white like that about like music because there was so much in between stuff. I think what it was for the Bangles, which we always felt like we were this quirky pop garage band that was trying to fit in somewhere and never could. And interestingly, we did kind of have this unbelievable success, but we always felt like people's perception of us was sort of different, and the singles were kind of a little bit different from how we started playing garage rock with a more psychedelic pop bent to it. But yeah, I think the 80s are such a diverse era, and we sort of took that challenge in making the record, Matthew and I did, of kind of bridging the indie rock part of the 80s, which, the DBs and REM, and even doing Girls Talk, which was Dave Edmunds and Elvis Costello song, and then bridging that with kind of the second British invasion stuff, like the Smiths and XTC and Roxy Music and Echo and the Bunnymen. So we kind of found a little bit a way to pull in the kind of guitar-driven aspect of it, and was so fun.
Those are all fantastic songs. I'll tell you, I was listening to the record. They sent it to me a couple days ago, and I've been listening to it again this morning. I love that Tom Petty song is one of my favorite songs.
Oh, thanks.
That English beat, that is one of my all-time favorite songs. I'm so glad you guys did save it for later.
Me too. And the English Beat were the first tour that the Bangles ever went on, and it was just such an amazing experience for us. Everything that happened to the Bangles along the way, like I said, we considered ourselves like a club band with, obviously every band starts out having this dream, but you never really think it's going to happen. But we just that was like the beginning of the journey for us as a national band outside of our little club scene that we were part of in L.A. And I love that song so much, and that tour was such an eye-opening experience.
Susanna Hoffs with us this morning on CD 102.5. I want to ask you a couple of other things too. Obviously, you've done so much with the Bangles and working with Matthew Sweet on these records, and also a great solo artist too. I know you recently, I think it was this year, you had another record come out. I think, if I think back, I think I saw you on your first solo tour.
Oh, really?
Did you open for Don Henley?
Yes, I did.
I saw that tour.
That was such a cool tour.
Do you remember what it was like to go out there for the first time as Susanna Hoffs?
Oh, it was so scary. It's always scary going out in front of an audience. I've been doing this for 30 years now, and it's still scary. But Don was so kind to let me go on the tour, and I had such an incredible band. The guitar player in that band has been playing with Paul McCartney for the last, at least 10 years or more, Rusty Anderson. He helped me put together a band. Rusty was a friend from the 80s, and I got to know through David Kahn, who produced a couple of the Bangles records, I should say, not all the Bangles records, but that was an insane experience going in front of that crowd. There was one show on the tour where it was Sting, Don Henley, and me. So it was all people who had been in other bands doing their solo stuff. It was pretty amazing. I'll never forget that tour.
Now, I'm going to ask you about social media a little bit. I was looking at your Twitter account earlier, and you're one of these people who you do tweet quite often. In fact, one of the things I saw you posted was, I'm really trying to write a song right now, but obviously I'm incredibly distracted by Twitter.
Yeah. I've finally got on Twitter when my solo record came out. I knew about Twitter, obviously, for years, but I never knew what it really was because I didn't have a Twitter account, so I would just hear about somebody tweeted this or that. But it really is a lot of fun, and I've met so many people, kind of fellow musicians and friends and you know, just people from all over. I mean, that's the whole beauty of social media, that it connects people. But it is fun. It's like haiku. You have to come up with a very succinct way of getting an idea across, and it can be a puzzle, but it is a lot of fun.
Susanna Hoffs with us this morning on CD 102.5. One of your tweets I noticed you shared was a bluegrass cover, a bluegrass band doing a cover of "Walk Like an Egyptian."
The Cleverleys, yeah.
Do you? I'm just picturing you sitting at home on like a Sunday afternoon going, I wonder who tried to do Manic Monday, and just like looking.
Oh, well, somebody had sent me the Cleverleys thing a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So blown away by it. I'm so excited because I love bluegrass and country music, and I'm singing. I got invited to be part of Stagecoach. It's early here in L.A.
That's all right.
I had coffee, but not enough to get my brain completely working, which is right after Coachella in next year in April, big music festival. And I know I'm drifting here, going from one idea to another, but I finally am going to have my opportunity to play my music with a little bit of the country spin mixed in there. So yeah, I don't surf looking for odd versions all the time, but I do stumble upon things as people do on the internet, and there's some amazing covers out there of our songs.
Well, that's fantastic. And once again, talking about covers, Sid and Susie, Matthew Sweet and Susanna Hoffs, Under the Covers, Volume 3, this time going after the 80s. And it's a great record. People need to check it out. And it's been great talking to you, Susanna Hoffs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.